Good morning. Welcome back to Project Freelance. It is early. It's 7 a.m. Pacific Standard Time when this episode comes out. That's when all the episodes come out, just in time for your Monday morning commute, if you have one, even though right now it's COVID and most of us are stuck at home. So you may not have a morning commute and you may sleep in a little bit longer these days. But whenever you're listening to this podcast, I appreciate it. Thank you for listening. This is Project Freelance, a podcast where I, Kay Inigonio, your host, talks to different guests from different industries about how they built their freelancing businesses and careers. So this week on the podcast, I am speaking with Paul Shoulberg. He is a writer and director for films, and he was actually recommended to me by Graham Eller-Sheldon, who was another podcast guest that I had on this show a couple months back. If you guys haven't listened to his episode, check out his link down in the description to his podcast, and you can check it out now, or after this episode, rather. So this week we are going to be talking about making it in the film industry as a creative, whether you need to go to film school, whether it's necessary, having a mentor, things like that. So before we get into the podcast, there are a few housekeeping things I need to let you guys know about. Firstly, if you guys take 30 to 45 seconds to leave a rating and feedback on this podcast, it would A, mean a lot to me, and B, it would help the podcast grow. And if you do leave a rating and feedback, take a screenshot of it and send it to me at Project Freelance, either on Instagram or Twitter, and I will send you a signed photo print of a photo that I have taken as a way of saying thank you for helping the podcast grow and helping other people find us and giving us some notoriety. It really does mean a lot to me to get that feedback from you guys, so thank you in advance for doing that. The next thing I need to let you know about is that I have a book out called No Tracers, an urban explorer's diary. It is full of stories and photographs from abandoned places that I have explored all over the United States, as well as a few international places. If you guys want to get a copy of that or read my blog about urban exploration and abandoned things, head to notracers.com. And I have a second podcast called No Tracers, which is another guest-based podcast where I talk to other urban explorers about how they got into exploring and the places they've explored. So if you're interested, again, I'll put a link in the description for that as well. And lastly, I need to thank our partner, Liquid Death Water. If you guys like water, which you should because water is great for you, but you're tired of buying plastic bottles, well, you know what? I have an ad. I'm just going to let the ad read play. So enjoy this ad in 3, 2, 1. From the streams of the Austrian Alps comes a new kind of water. A water that is sure to raise you from your grave. If you're tired of buying cases of plastic water bottles that contain carcinogens and God knows what else, or if you're trying to lower your waste footprint, Liquid Death comes in beautifully rugged aluminum cans. Murder your thirst with a can of Liquid Death. Check the link in the description and use code JustTheLetterK at checkout for 10% off your order. Liquid Death. Murder your thirst. So if you guys are interested in getting some Liquid Death water, go check it out. Use the code JustTheLetterK for a discount on your case of water. Or you can click the link in the description. That will take you directly to the affiliate site, and it will automatically apply that coupon code for you. Thank you guys for listening to Project Freelance. Without further ado, Paul, can you please introduce yourself and what it is you do to the Project Freelance audience?
Right. Hi, my name is Paul Shoulberg. I am a writer and director of independent films.
So let's talk about how you got into filmmaking in the first place. What made you catch the bug for creativity?
Well, I was, when I graduated high school, like forever ago, back in 1995, I had I knew I wanted to do something creative, and I wasn't raised by, like, my dad was a therapist and my mom was a teacher. I wasn't raised around artists. So I didn't, when you're not raised around artists, you don't feel like you have permission to be one sometimes. So I knew I had this thing and I didn't know what to do with it. So I tried to be a musician for several years. I played guitar like 10 hours a day. I went to and got kicked out or failed out of a couple music schools. I was not good at all, and it was killing me. And one day I was doing scales in front of I think I was watching the movie Bird, the Charlie Parker movie that Clint Eastwood did, and I saw. I remember thinking, like, I love the stories about musicians. I love contextualizing them more than I love playing music. And that's when it clicked that I wanted to create the world, not not be in the world as a participant. I kind of always viewed, like, it's weird, but I sort of have always seen life from a, like, I contextualize it with a narrative, but I don't feel particularly present a lot of time. And film kind of, I'd always loved film, but then I became obsessed in my early 20s, and I ended up going to I did my undergrad. I was a film major at Kansas University, and I met Kevin Wilmot, who wrote The Black Klansman, The Five Bloods with Spike Lee, and he just won an Oscar. And he was a screenwriting teacher at KU, still is, and he really went out of his way to, in such a generous way, to let me know that I brought him a screenplay. I wasn't even a student of his. I just brought him a screenplay, like, unbound in, like, a big manila envelope. And he read it and had me kind of come in every couple weeks and just invested a lot of time in me. And that really, from that point forward, this was my path.
Wow. Would you consider him like a mentor? One of my questions is if you've
Absolutely.
ever had like a mentor. So tell me a little bit more about that process, working with somebody closely like that on a project that you were working on.
He absolutely, I would consider him my mentor. Not only did he give me great feedback and talk to me about, just the specifics of writing, but he's also the one that insisted with one of my screenplays that I do a public reading of it that I direct.
Wow.
And he went over to, and I'd never worked with actors at that time, and he went over to the theater department and said, like, give me your best people. And they all did this, and I directed them and realized how much I loved working with actors. And he did that for me, and he made me do it. It was way out of my comfort zone. And he just, it's so much more than giving good notes on a script in terms of finding a mentor. It's somebody that's really explaining how the business works and how he's also, just modeled a pretty cool life where he lives in Lawrence, Kansas, and he just won an Oscar.
Wow.
And he just portrayed, like, it showed a really nice balance of how to get where you want to get without, I've got 2 kids and a wife that, we live in Indiana right now. And, he showed me a path where I didn't have to, like, say, like, okay, well, we're all struggling artists now. Let's go to that, studio apartment, in the middle of, wherever. Like, they're able to not have to, like, alter their lives so I could pursue this dream. He kind of showed that path of how you can not put, like, as when you're pursuing this, like, it's so hard. And if you're passionate about it, it's great, but, like, you don't want to put your dreams on someone else's back.
Yeah.
It just showed me through example, like, a path forward on how to do this.
Man, that's awesome. I'm looking for my own mentor right now. So it's cool to hear how much you've gained from having one, and everybody I've talked to that's had a mentor has just, exponentially grown in their careers. And so, like, thank you for sharing that. As a film student, do you think that it's necessary to go to school? One of my questions is about education, especially for, like, filmmakers, creatives, artists in general, maybe musicians even. Do you think that it's necessary to go to school? And if so, what did you take away as a student?
it's funny because I have like two separate answers for this, and the first one is absolutely not. It's not necessary. But the second answer is coincidentally, I met Kevin by being in a film program. I met the producers for two of my different films while I was in grad school. I went to grad school for I got my MFA in playwriting, um, and I met people that ended up being the main producers on two of my films while in grad school. So it does provide a you're kind of like forced into a community of artists, and you're all kind of at the I think the hardest part about getting into film is finding your people who are at the same place in their career, because that's how you actually get anywhere. And I'm saying this as someone that is I've got a long way to go for sure, but the relationships that really will help you are the ones of your peers, not like going and getting, you get these meetings with people that are showrunners or something, and those are like lottery ticket moments where maybe you scratch the right thing and you accidentally stumble into something, but the real opportunities are going to come from the people that are at the same place as you are. And film school does force you to be in the exact same place in your career as a bunch of people around you. But when I went to I did my undergrad, like I failed out of like I had so many different schools before I finally found film, and then I did a good job as a student. But when I graduated undergrad in 2004 from a state school, the cost of education was so much lower then that I could never recommend. And my grad school, I was able to go to grad school for free. I would not have paid for it. And if you're taking out massive loans and you are not, I mean, if you're taking out massive loans, you're not independently wealthy, but I can't say that it would ever be worth $80,000 of debt.
True.
Like to me, all the information you need, you absolutely don't need school for that, period. The relationships, you're going to have to find a way to make those outside of a system. I'm not an extrovert, so the forced situation, like I could always, like when in all of my film classes, I always quickly emerge as the guy that writes. Like I was the guy that could write. It was just the thing that so many things don't come naturally to me in film. I've had to work really hard. Writing dialogue was just the one thing that I had like as a just weird natural thing. And because of that, and because we were in a class situation, I didn't have to promote myself. I could just write stuff, send out a PDF, and then suddenly we're making a film. And I would not have done that on my own. I just am not wired that way. So for the social aspects of networking, that was like the only way I was comfortable doing it. Other people are much more, they're just better with people, and you could be a PA on a film and comfortably and organically form these bonds. I see it happen all the time on my films. I see these people that are just, I see them and I'm like, you're going to be fine. I could just tell how you interact. I wasn't that way. I've gotten more comfortable over time. But so I think it's very, this is a very long-winded answer, and I apologize.
It's a podcast. It's 4 long-winded answers. You're good. Go for it.
I think that you kind of have to take a hard look at what you are, who you are, what your strengths and weaknesses are. And if you're not, like, part of why it took me so long to start directing. I've been writing screenplays. I'm 43 now, and I've been writing screenplays since I was 23. I didn't get my first feature until we shot that in 2016. So because I could stay home and write and be an artist and send scripts out, and and I feel like I was comfortable doing that, but I was not comfortable forcing my way onto a set of a student film that I had nothing to do with and learning. and that I regret. So if you're somebody who is not wired to go out and create those kinds of opportunities for yourself, I do think school is one way to get past that.
Absolutely. And one thing I didn't learn in film school, I have a bachelor's in film production myself, but one thing they didn't really teach is the importance of networking. Can you talk a little bit about that? Like you just said, you were kind of forced into this situation in a classroom where you're kind of networking, but you're already with the people. But outside of film school, like afterwards, can you talk about the importance of connecting with people in the industry?
Sure, and I'm doing this as somebody who has a lot of regrets for not having done it the right way earlier. So I you're right that very few schools, there's a like professor pleasing mentality
Yeah.
in a lot of schools where, I mean, you see it. It's way worse in like, because I've done my undergraduate was in theater and film. I focused on film, but I went to grad school as a playwright, so I was around a lot of theater, and you see the mistake made by theater student actors, and this is a good example for all people in these industries. But there were times where I was doing like an independent production of like some play that I loved, where I was directing and casting a couple actors in the department. And this happened multiple times, and the actors to me that got it, like they knew I was a writer and they knew I was creating scripts and I was ambitious and I was going out in the world and I was trying to do something. But there was like, you would ask an actor to be in your thing and they'd be like, you know what, I'm going to be the fifth lead in a main stage production of, an Arthur Miller play, because I really want this professor to notice me. And you realize like the second you get out of school, that professor who you right now feels like this worldly person that's gonna like give you all the answers, they'll do nothing. Like the fact that you were in Death of a Salesman at Indiana University means nothing the second you walk out of those doors.
True.
But the relationship with the people, like if you know somebody that's a good writer, or if you know somebody that is a great photographer, that relationship is infinitely more important than being the lead in a college play. And it you don't think that because you're getting in front of 300 people for a week and you feel like I'm a star. But the like finding the people that actually, and this sounds cynical is the word, and I don't mean it to sound this way, but when you form relationships with people, there's your friends, and that's just people that support you and make you feel good about life. That has nothing to do with the industry. But as far as like networking goes, I think that people always make the mistake that it is this, and me too, and I will continue to make this mistake. It's not sending an email to a producer that knows the aunt of one of your former roommates and saying, hey, I like film, I'd love to pick your brain. You could, I mean, do that too, because you gotta do that. But it's being in your peer group and seeing that person that is really good at storyboarding, or the person that, again, like their photos just look amazing, and saying like, hey, I really like your aesthetic. I want to do a short film. Have you ever thought about being a DP and not just a still photographer? And you could kind of gauge, and if you connect, and then you have similar taste. If you bring something to the table, like if you're a good writer or if you're a good whatever, you could then, that to me is the networking that no one talks about, but really is, you see people come up in groups all the time.
Yep.
And I firmly believe the relationships that I have that are real, like I have a couple actors that are like legitimate friends of mine that we like, I know I could call and get a favor from that person anytime because they're an actual friend. It's very different than like, I know that person and we're friendly. And I think those true bonds that you form with people, that's real. That's the real networking. And that's why as someone that lives in Indiana, like I do think that being in LA or New York, again, nothing matters now because of COVID, but like in a normal functioning world, being in the industry lets you organically build those real relationships over years in a way that, as someone that does go out to LA for like a month every year, I'm only really, the organic relationships that I have are from people that I spent time with at either when I was at Indiana in grad school or KU in undergrad. Everything else feels a little forced, and which is okay. I've gotten opportunities from those forced things, but I think the really investing in people, following up with people, don't wait until you want something to start like cycling through your email list. Like if you respect somebody's work, connect with them even if when you're not looking for something.
Yeah.
And actually find out if you guys want to be around each other, because that's the big thing. Like, can you stand this person? Because if you work on something together, you're in it, you know?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it just goes to show you that like we build our circle up with us. Like we take our people with us whenever, and the same goes for music, like you take your people with you as you grow and as you develop as an artist. So it's super interesting to hear that you gained most of those relationships from, Indiana and where you went to school and things like that, instead of the contrary, like going to LA and trying to do the whole Hollywood thing, because in Hollywood, it's a lot. I feel like people are so fake out here. I feel like everybody's just out for themselves. They're not trying to help build each other up, unlike the rest of the country, where I think the industry is more about making those personal connections.
I would argue that as someone living in Indiana, there's plenty of garbage here too, people wise. It's I do think though that LA is going to attract a certain type of intensity around the industry where the people that kind of suck, well, you're going to get hit with them really hard, really fast, and high numbers. Yep. Whereas in Indiana, if you find anyone that like even wants to do this, it's like, whoa, you're one of them. Cool. But yeah, it is tricky. But when I really think about it, every job I've gotten, really every one has come directly or indirectly from one of my longtime connections, not from a meeting.
Yeah.
And if you listen to, I'm a huge fan of podcasts, and I listen to tons of people in the industry, and it seems like a pretty consistent story there, where like the opportunities that people get usually come from, it really is who you know, and not in a gross way.
Right.
It's like who in your circle like genuinely thinks highly enough of you to be like, yeah, I'll put my name on the line to recommend this person.
Absolutely. Yeah. And you're completely right about that. I talk about this with my roommate who's a film student right now, and he's trying to, get job placements at, Fox or CBS or wherever. And I'm trying to educate him that it is really who it's all about that. It's like experience is important, which is great, and it's going to help you, but like it really is about who these days.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's, unless you are somehow able to write, star, shoot, edit, score, and somehow promote your material all by yourself in a way that you're just like, and then drop it online and somehow find a massive audience, there's no other way to do. You're just going to need people.
Yeah.
A lot of people, and it's not an easy path, but there are people a few people I've known from various film school stuff where I knew them in school and found them to be like a little irritating in their overt networking. But I've seen a few of them succeed quite well, and I'm just like, well, of course that person is like a machine.
Yeah.
And if you are really great at just bullshitting and doing that, that is, and it's a legitimate skill.
Yeah.
And like there is a path for you but you still, that person still has to work so hard to do that as well. There's no path unless you've got like some sort of nepotism situation going on. There's no path to it where it isn't just dedicating your entire life to building out a world. It's not just your talent. It's the commitment to a life that allows you access to people.
Yeah.
And it's super tricky.
Yeah, totally. It is very, very tricky. And so as a creative, like how long did it take for you to go from doing this as a passion to it paying your bills? Like how long did that process take for you?
Forever. So again, I think I wrote my first screenplay when I was 22 or 23. And from that point, I went back to school for film. And then I went to grad school right after that. So I had like a 7-year hiding out period where I could hide in school and not really deal with the reality of things. But, I graduated, I came out of grad school, I was 30, and I did not, it wasn't until I think 2017 was the first year this is all I had to do to get by.
Wow.
So again, this is somebody living in the wrong part of the country to do this. So there may be a faster path, but it's still like super touch and go. I mean, I'm making, I've had, as a writer director, I just finished my third film, but it's still like you're always like 6 months to a year away from like, what do I do?
Yeah.
Like it's unless you're making huge studio things or you're piped into like a long running TV show or something. It's always kind of a grind for sure, but it took a while. I mean, I wrote a film called Walter that got made, shot in 2013, and that was my first like real credit. And if you look at the cast, it's William H. Macy and Jim Gaffigan, Milo Ventimiglia, Nev Campbell. I was working at a grocery store in Bloomington, Indiana. That I went to LA for 4 weeks, came right back and worked in the grocery store.
Wow. While
the movie was like in post and doing all that stuff, and was still working in that grocery store when my movie, I was able to shoot and have my directorial debut with The Good Catholic. And I did that and I shot that, and I was editing that, working with my editor back after production. I had to go back to the grocery store through all of editing. And it wasn't until that movie was released in 2017 that I was able to finally stop working at a grocery store. So that's the big thing that I don't think people realize is it might look, you might have a review in, a big publication or a distributor and your movie's out and stuff, but it doesn't mean you're, it really is, it takes longer than people realize to actually have enough of a financial setup that you could even just do this full time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think people underestimate how long the process of creating a film is. I've been working on a documentary for 3 years, and it's like, you just think like, oh yeah, I'm going to write this and direct it and shoot it and then it'll be done and out and I'll be making money. But it's not that quick. It's like especially when it's something you really care about, like you need to take the time to go through the process and allow it to grow and change over time. Like when I started this documentary I'm working on, it's about a personal bodyguard for rock bands. And
Nice.
so his story is evolving over time. Like, he gets new clients. He started working with the Steelers at the beginning. Now he's working with rock bands, and he's just like rising in his career. So it's like, especially with documentaries, like, when does the story end?
Right. I can't imagine. Like, I just watched a documentary, Boys State. I don't know if you've seen that.
I haven't.
It was at Sundance last year. It's great. It's terrifying. But I was just thinking the whole time, like, because it's shaped, but like, these were like 1,000 kids at some government camp. How did they know that they were going to find the right 4 people and then shape that into a narrative? I don't, to me, the patience and skill of documentary filmmakers, I'm in awe, because at least when it's narrative, I control what the thing's going to be about.
Yeah.
And with the documentary, you do, like you're saying, you have to wait for the story to kind of present itself to you.
100%.
And there's no guarantee it's going to happen.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. And, you know, with like this year with COVID, like, you know, everything's like touring. The guy tours with bands, and there's no touring right now. So we're just sitting on our asses with our hands under our butts, like, well, I guess we'll just wait until next year to continue this or something.
Yeah, no, there's so many people. Like, we got so lucky on this last film that I did, where we finished shooting about 3 weeks before the shutdown.
Wow.
Like, we finished shooting, and then like a week later, I'm like, what is this? COVID? What's happening? And then like the everything shut down. So we finished in late February.
Wow.
And I know so many people that like got halfway through. I mean, on an independent film, if you get stopped halfway through, it's just too expensive to start up again in 6 months.
Damn. Yeah.
So it's just like, it's terrifying to think about how this has like affected film production.
Yeah, it's crazy. You know, and now we've got, you know, some production starting back up. I've got my guitar player works on sets. He's a PA, and he does a bunch of things on sets. And so they're starting to, you know, do TV shows and things again. And they have all these COVID protocols, and they have people quarantining, and the whole industry is totally different now. You know, it's like completely different. Can you talk a little bit about what COVID has done and how it's changed the industry?
Sure. Well, we had to shoot, we had a couple reshoots. Like, literally, we needed to get 3 shots for this film that I just finished. And luckily they were like not even scenes. It was just like inserts. So we were able to get, and we're in Indiana. So first thing was, we don't want to fly anyone out because flying during COVID is just huge risk that you don't want. Plus, you're bringing somebody in who knows what they're bringing with them. So even that, it was 3 inserts, and we had our DP out in LA was zooming in with the guy we were using locally, and like, it was literally rotate the camera 2 degrees. And so we had time. We had a full day, but we had 3 inserts, and it took all day. Wow. And again, we knew we were going to be able to be inefficient, so we kind of indulged it.
Sure.
But like, I just wrote a script that has 4 actors in one location, and it's like kind of a home invasion thing, and the people doing the home invading, I put in masks aesthetically, but the thought was, that way we're only quarantining these 4 actors, and like, those people, they could have real masks on underneath their masks.
Wow.
And you think about things like that. Like, I essentially wrote a script to be more COVID friendly, even like putting it all in one location. A lot like that. There's a world in which you could have a much smaller crew, and they could get there, and while quarantining, could be pre-lighting the entire space. Wow. So you could have a smaller crew that can do more work, because you'd have to get everybody out there 2 weeks ahead of time to kind of create a bubble. Because if, again, on these small films, like, if an actor gets it, like, you can't do anything. Yeah. You're done.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, if a gaffer gets it, it's awful. But you could find a gaffer. You could put that gaffer in quarantine and pay them their sick leave and bring in another gaffer. But if your person on camera gets it, there's nothing you can do.
Yeah.
You can't like reshoot the movie. So you really have to think the same kind of parameters that I've always been had to deal with in trying to make a film as efficiently shootable as possible. You know, small locations, small cast, small crew, all stuff that brings the budget down anyways. Now it's like you really have to do that or it's not even a real discussion. And I do think people that have worked in the truly independent film world and have had to pay attention to every dollar spent, I think have an opportunity because it's a skill set. Writing small is a skill set. And when people that never have to worry about that start writing small, I don't think that they understand. Like, it's not something you could just scale everything back. It is an actual, it's a muscle you have to develop. Like, how do you make writing to a small cast and a small crew? How do you do that effectively? So it's an asset and not like a thing that just makes your film worse.
Yeah. And speaking of assets, can you talk about making yourself an asset on set? Like, I think that's hugely important. Like, you have to be able to wear multiple hats. And I feel like people don't realize that. Everybody's so focused on their one task. But can you talk about being an asset on set?
Yes. As someone who, my only real set experience has been as a writer or writer director. So, if I'm not being an asset, the movie is kind of completely screwed. If I'm useless as a director, we're in big trouble. But I never forget the people who, and it could come from anywhere. It could be, you usually hear about it being a PA because usually PAs are the only positions where the job is not clearly defined anyways. It is sort of one of those, like, you could have a PA saving a $50,000 shot or a PA getting coffee.
Yeah.
It could be like, but I always know which PAs, and it trickles down everywhere though. It could be like, department heads and everything, but like to me, the bare minimum for a department head, if you've hired correctly, they're absolute assets. And if your department heads aren't assets, then you have failed hiring. Like, there's just no excuse. If you're like running a department, at that point, it should be flat out like you should be doing your job and doing it well. But I always spot the PAs, the camera assistants, whoever, who are, you could just tell like that person is useful. I want them on the next film. And it's not the person that's coming up to me and saying, what are your influences? It's not the person that's really good at networking around set. There are people that do that. They're really good at talking and they come up to you and you feel good after you talk to them, but you're like, did that person like help the movie at all?
Right.
And there's other people that are really hard workers, but are, and this, you know, honestly, like I relate to them in the sense that you don't feel comfortable like improvising problem solving.
Yeah.
But the people that are on set that just problem solve, that you could turn, I love being able to turn to a PA and just saying, fix this, and not have them say, well, I don't know who to tell. It's like, I'm asking you for help, or you hear me asking for help and I'm not even talking to you. And you immediately say, I could go find someone, I could do this.
Yeah.
I love it. When somebody takes, especially as a director, you have infinite problems on your plate. You're never going to get to all of them. And when people start taking them off your plate without having you asking them to do it or telling, like when it's just like, oh, the plate's lighter. That person just did something to really make my day easier. And I didn't need to, like, if you can anticipate, that's the big thing. If you can anticipate what needs to be done before you have to be told to do it, being told to do it is adding stress to somebody.
Yeah.
If your production supervisor has to go tell you, hey, can you do this? That's one extra thing. But if you could just anticipate whoever it is you're around, what do they need? Can I solve it before they even notice it's a problem? That's a great PA. And those people absolutely get noticed by the right people all the time.
For sure, 100%. And yeah, so thank you for talking about that. I think that's super important. And I think that'll help a lot of people that are out there trying to come up in the industry that are listening to this episode. So let's talk about Miss White Light. Tell me about that film and the process of creating it. Tell me a little bit about the story behind it, and we'll go from there.
This kind of goes back to my first film that I wrote, Walter, was being made. My father passed away like right before that film went into production. And sort of changed my path for a while. I kind of started thinking about death quite a bit. And The Good Catholic, it's definitely present. That film was based loosely on my father's life, but I touched on death. We shot a scene in The Good Catholic where somebody was dying, and one of the priests was there to kind of comfort them. And I thought, like one of the things that I found interesting was, what if there was a whole movie about just that moment, about because being next to, like, being with my father as he was dying and being able to be there, like in the final moments, really, it was such a profound thing. And what kind of blew me away was, yes, of course it's sad, but it's also funny and weird and strangely boring. And, but like life altering too. Like it's kind of a gift. It's like when you get those moments in life where, well, from this point forward, I'm now this person. Those are gifts, like getting transformational moments are, I think, a gift, even though often they come with a lot of heartache. And I just felt like this is something that death is something that everybody will experience.
Right.
It affects everybody. It's so ordinary and so normal and so utterly profound and unusual. And it's just, I have not seen it dealt with in a way that wasn't like, it's very dramatic, so we use it dramatically, but I hadn't seen it dealt with in a way where you're really exploring like how death affects people. So I wanted to do something that really dealt with that. That's kind of where it all came from, is like being around the death process, watching hospice workers. What a job.
Yeah.
Like what a just, and I would have thought before seeing them work with my dad, I would never want to do that job. Like what an awful job.
Yeah.
But they get such fulfillment out of doing it. It's not, and I mean this in the best possible way as a compliment, it is not selfless, sacrificial work. They connect and they get life out of that. They get something out of that, the good ones. And boy, I've only seen the good ones at work. And just really, really delving into a subject matter that is the most universal subject matter I think you could have.
Yeah. So
this.
Go ahead.
The story in general is about a person who has this unique gift to counsel people who are in the dying process but can't let go. She just is able to connect and kind of help them, like, remove their fear and allow them to pass on in peace. And but she's unable to deal with people that aren't dying. She has like major issues with connecting to people that aren't about to die. She's only comfortable connecting with people when they're about to die. And so it's about her trying to develop emotionally in a way that she can form connections with people that she doesn't kind of control the outcome. And it's about her kind of learning to be vulnerable enough to care for someone when you don't know exactly how it's going to go.
Wow. Yeah. And I got the pleasure of watching the trailer before we did this podcast, and it looks absolutely incredible. And you put that comedy aspect into it as well, which I think is great. And it keeps it, it keeps the dark part of our life, which is death, a little bit more lighthearted. And I think that's such a great aspect of this film. So when does it premiere? Where does it premiere? And how can people find it and watch it?
It will be available digitally everywhere where you buy or rent movies, all the normal platforms on October 6th. I think it's going to be it premiered at South by last year, but I think it's going to be if you're in San Diego, it'll be the film festival in October at some point but again, none of this is live, so it's all like you'd still be watching it on a but you can on October 6th you could get it like iTunes and Amazon and all the places. So yeah.
Cool. So this episode will come out on the 5th, so I'll be sure to update the links in the description for you guys on the 6th when it's live, so you guys can go download it and watch it. And if people want to maybe get a hold of you, pick your brain some more, or potentially, hire you as a writer or director, how can they get a hold of you?
I'm on Twitter way too much.
Same.
All the time. So I am if you reach out to me on Twitter, I will see it. Cool. It's because I am living on Twitter. I'm if you like retweets of various anti-Trump humor.
Perfect. I'm following you immediately.
Yeah, that's the place to go.
All right.
But yeah, that's probably the easiest place. I just joined Instagram 2 days ago because I'm going to be doing an Instagram live. But I'm I don't take photos and I don't post videos. So I never understood what Instagram was for if you don't do those things.
For sure.
So I'm slowly creeping into I'm almost at 2013 level of social media, so I'm getting there.
Perfect. That's okay. Twitter's the greatest social media platform that exists right now, aside from TikTok, I think. But yeah, so
my kids love TikTok.
Oh man, it's great. It's a great platform. My manager was like, "You need to get on TikTok as a musician," and I was like, "No, I don't dance. I'm not doing it." But turns out there's a niche for metal music on TikTok. So hey, we're killing it.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
All right, Paul. Thank you so much for coming on Project Freelance and sharing your stories and your insights with my audience. I appreciate you taking the time.
Oh, thank you. This is great. I really appreciate it.
All right, guys. That was my episode with Paul Shoulberg. Thank you so much, Paul, for coming on the podcast. And a huge thank you to Graham Sheldon for recommending him to me for this podcast. I love getting recommendations for future guests, for future episodes. It really helps this podcast move along, and it helps me connect with more people. And I've had an absolutely fantastic time talking to Paul on this episode. If you enjoyed it, if you got something out of it, please be sure to leave a rating and feedback. And like I said at the beginning of the podcast, if you do that, I will send you a signed photo print as my way of saying thank you. So all you got to do is leave your feedback, take a screenshot, and send it to me at Project Freelance on Instagram or Twitter, and I will be sure to get you a signed photo print out to you. All right, guys, I will talk to you next week on Project Freelance with another guest. And if you would like to come on the show, hit me up at contact@justtheletterk, and we'll get you on the show. Go check out Miss White Light. I've put the links down in the description for you guys. Enjoy the movie, and let me know what you think. More importantly, let Paul know what you think on Twitter. His Twitter's down below. See you guys. Stay strong, keep enduring, go out, and go create something.
I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid. Goodbye, Pearl. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry for your loss.
What the hell is this?
No. God never gives you more than you can handle. So, yeah.
We should get a website.
Why? to help solidify our brand.
We don't have a brand.
Not yet, but with a website.
Dad,
Why are you here?
this is what I do.
You creep out dying girls?
Are you creeped out?
Not creeped out.
My urine looks like iced tea. Looks like a fresh batch of Lipton.
Thank you for that.
Cordova and Cordova Mortality Solutions.
Incorporated. Well, technically we're an LLC, but we thought the INC had a better ring to it.
You ever watch someone die? Like really be there till the end? But facing death, like sharing that with someone, it's beautiful.
Be normal, do normal things, live a normal life.
Why would I want to be like everyone else?
Because it has to be better than this.
You find someone, no ties, just a person out in the world, and you earn their giving a about you. You love friendship, something real, and you got a chance.
God closes a door, he opens a window. I nailed that.